Growing up, my childhood Christmases were filled with all kinds of traditions, one of which was making candy. My mom would pull out all of her supplies. We would make peanut butter cups, mint chocolate truffles, and foolproof fudge. Today, I want to try making an old-fashioned fudge, which will be a little more complicated, but I want to do it in a keto-friendly way, and I would really like to use the brand new flavor from KetoChow, Peppermint. This recipe is going to rely heavily on some keto-friendly sweeteners, which will make your total carb count higher. The net carbs will not be affected, but if you count total carbs, it's definitely going to be an increase. One of the things though is it's going to be candy, so put candy in its proper place and use it as like a tiny little morsel after a meal, and also pair it with a meal so you don't overeat these things. This is not intended to be a meal replacement food, so everything in its proper place. To get started, we've got our sweeteners and our dairy. We're gonna cook those over here on the stove. I've got some powdered sweetener. This is just erythritol that I blended in my Vitamix to make it into a powder, which hopefully will keep it from recrystallizing. I have a little bit of allulose here, and I've got some heavy cream and a stick of butter. I do have a candy thermometer. This is definitely a tool you want to have. You can get whatever style you'd like. This is what I have in my kitchen. I also am going to need a whisk to keep stirring, and I'm going to want to keep the sweetener from creeping up the edges, which will then cause crystallization and all kinds of issues. Making candy is a tricky process, and yeah, so I'm trying to be as prepared and on top of it as I possibly can. Old-fashioned fudge is kind of like a two major part recipe where you do part of it on the stove and the other part here at the counter. These are my dry ingredients, and I want to make sure that they are ready to go the moment that my sweetener mixture gets to temperature. I've got a packet of KetoChow. I'm super excited to use the peppermint flavor, limited edition. Gosh, so tasty. I'm going to use some acacia powder. This is something that kind of acts a little bit like gluten, and it tends to sort of help things set in my experience. In my trials of the fudge, I have used all sweetener, and they have turned out sickeningly sweet, and the texture has been kind of wonky to my preferences. This time I'm going to use some oat fiber. If you do not wish to use this, you can definitely just use more of the powdered sweetener, and you will get a different result. But the oat fiber here is going to be my bulking agent. That is something you definitely need in this portion of the recipe. I did not try any other types of fiber like the bamboo fiber or any others, but I have oat fiber on hand, and that's what I'm going to use. I also have some peppermint extract. I will be adding a little bit of this to, let's see if we can get it to focus. I will be adding a little bit of this to my mixture, and if you'd like, you could also add a little bit of vanilla to sort of balance the peppermint flavor. Let's go ahead and prepare our dry ingredients. In a heat-proof bowl, add 1 packet of KetoChow, which is a single serving. Add 1/2 cup of oat fiber or other fiber of your choosing, and 1/2 teaspoon of some acacia fiber. For that second step, I will be using an electric hand mixer, and I'm just going to whisk those things together. Last thing you want to prep before we get started is lining a heat-proof container with some parchment. I've got a glass Pyrex dish here that is oven safe, so that is perfect. This will help us to release the candy from this container when it is fully set. Heat a heavy saucepan on your stove to a low temperature. Mine is at about a 2 out of 10 on my heat scale. Add 1/2 cup of butter to the pan, 3/8 of a cup of heavy cream, 1 cup of powdered sweetener. This is the erythritol that I blended in my Vitamix. Erythritol does not love water as much as allulose, so this is a better choice than all allulose in my experience. And lastly, 1/2 cup of allulose into the saucepan. Gently whisk these ingredients together so they're fully incorporated. The goal here is to keep the powdered sweeteners from recrystallizing on the sides of your pan. Stir gently but continuously until you see small bubbles form around the outside edge of your pan. This ensures the bottom of your confection will not burn. Now that we have bubbles on the outside edge, it's time to stop stirring and keep your candy thermometer at the ready. We want this mixture to reach 238 degrees Fahrenheit, which will be a soft ball stage. It's tempting to want to stir this mixture, but if you do that, you might wind up with crystals of sweetener in your final result. So do your best to not do that, but do keep a close watch on that thermometer. My stove is a gas stove and it only takes about 5 minutes for this to reach temperature. Electric stoves may take a little bit longer. As soon as you reach 238 degrees Fahrenheit, pour your sweetener mixture into your dry mixture that you already had prepared, and you are going to use an electric hand mixer to beat this for about 5 minutes. Your mixture will become very thick and batter-like, and once it has cooled off for a couple of minutes, you can add in your extracts. I'm adding in a 1/4 teaspoon of peppermint extract. This is also where you would add vanilla if you were doing that. The fudge now looks like a thick cookie dough, and that is perfect. We're gonna scrape that into our prepared pan so that we can spread it out and allow it to cool. While we wait for that fudge to set up over there, I wanted to tell you that the KetoChow peppermint flavor is a limited edition. We have no guarantees that this comes back next fall and winter time. So make sure to let KetoChow know that you really love this flavor by buying it up if you are interested in it. I have an affiliate link down in my description box below that does let KetoChow know that I sent you to them, and it does give me a tiny bit of commission without raising the prices for you. In fact, I have a 10% discount code. It's just Lindsey Murphy, all lowercase, that you can plug in at checkout, and that'll save you 10% off your order. Here is the fudge fully set and completely cooled. Now we can use a sharp knife and cut it into some squares. I'm going in for 64 squares on this batch of fudge. I could have easily put this fudge into a smaller container so it would be thicker, but I decided on the 8x8 so that I could make some nice tiny little squares. They are the perfect poppable morsel. If you would like a printed version of this recipe, there is a link in the description to my website where I do have precise measurements and instructions in an easy to print out format. Here's my fudge. Peppermint KetoChow fudge, like an old-fashioned fudge. I'm so excited. I'm ready to taste test this. I did have some little tastes when I was cleaning up my stuff and things back here. So the unset, uncured candy was pretty tasty. So I have very high hopes for the completed confection sitting here. Let's see, let's take a little piece. It looks very much so like a piece of fudge. The chew is like super amazing. And it kind of melts in your mouth a little bit the way that like an old-fashioned fudge would. Oh, that's dangerous. Don't be intimidated when it comes to candy making. Even on a keto diet, you can still play around with these things, keeping in mind that this is not the major part of your food consumption. This is a treat and you must treat it as such. But it's still a lot of fun to play with ingredients and come up with things that are amazing and give you that, I don't know, just like that satisfaction of being able to do something like this and taste good. So I'm gonna go put these away before they become a major problem for me. When you try these out, I want you to come back to this video and let me know how they turned out for you. Cheers.